The previous section explained how NATO's Article 5 declares an attack on one member as an attack on all, activating collective defense. Analysts believe Russia's drone strike on Poland was a calculated move to probe NATO's reaction. This triggered NATO's collective defense mechanisms, raising the stakes in a tense dance between two global powers. Now, let's dive deeper. Two crucial clauses in the NATO treaty, Articles 4 and 5, are at the heart of this crisis. On that fateful night of September 10, the line between peace and war blurred, forcing NATO's hand. Directly invoking Article 5 is daunting. It means full-scale collective defense, a commitment that can't be taken lightly. But Article 4, a lesser-known yet powerful tool, was activated instead. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk officially called for consultations under Article 4, changing the game with a single declaration. Tusk's words pierced the tense air. Shooting down hostile drones was no longer just a military move, it had rewritten the political landscape. This was no isolated conflict for Ukraine alone. It was now a confrontation waged by Russia against the free world, the invisible front line stretching far beyond the battlefield. Article 4 isn't just a formality, it kicks off a collective assessment, laying the groundwork for coordinated measures. It creates a forum where allies gather to decide how to respond, grasping the gravity of the moment without plunging immediately into war. Tusk struck a delicate balance, quelling fears by insisting, "We are not at war," yet sounding a grave warning, "This is the closest danger we have seen since World War II." He labeled the incursion of 19 drones, swarms that silently crossed sovereign skies, as a bold, large-scale provocation. Behind his calm words lay an urgent message of readiness and resolve. NATO pilots and command personnel, who had faced down the threat in the dark, earned his gratitude for their skill and courage. Article 4 precedes Article 5. It holds the crisis in a fragile political military limbo, a message sent firmly to Moscow: "We see you. We are talking. And we are preparing." Unlike Article 5, which demands immediate collective military action, Article 4 allows time and space for dialogue, deterrence, and measured responses. That night, it was invoked precisely because NATO needed to project strength without escalating into open war. The threshold for full collective defense is deliberately high, touched only once since the attacks on September 11, 2001. Meanwhile, Article 4 serves as a shield that unites allies through consultation during looming threats. That night, this article was brought to life. Why? Because the drone incursions were too deliberate and coordinated to dismiss as accidents, yet they didn't amount to a formal declaration of war. Diplomatic and military leaders sought a path to ramp up deterrence without crossing the line into total conflict. So, what did this mean on the ground? Patriot missile batteries were armed but held fire. Fighter jets scrambled into the night sky, reinforcing patrols without immediate engagement. The air defense doctrine shifted, embracing vigilance and readiness, thickening the protective shield over NATO's eastern frontier. The scene was set, a powerful display of unity and resolve, a silent warning blazing brighter than ever to Moscow. But what would happen next? How would this unprecedented night reshape the balance of power and the future of European security? The answers lie just beyond the horizon, where the shadows of drones and jets collide with the fate of nations. In the previous segment, we explored how Article 4 created room for a measured, collective response. Launching missiles wasn't the immediate answer. Instead, jets scrambled, and missile systems stood ready but held their fire. Now, the tension remains, the message clear: strengthen the defenses, but don't let the conflict spiral out of control. That night became a real-world exam for NATO's carefully woven air and missile defense network. Picture sweeping long-range radar arrays cutting through the darkness, AWACS surveillance planes tirelessly relaying signals like vigilant sentinels. The elusive F-35s, cloaked in near invisibility, crept closer to intruders, their silent approach a nightmare for anyone daring to breach the skies. Meanwhile, the trusted F-16s waited patiently as the crucial final guardians of the kill chain, swift, lethal, and precise. The outcome? Several unmanned aerial vehicles were decisively downed. The risk was curtailed before it could escalate. This was more than routine air patrols, it was a milestone. NATO advanced from simple air policing to a robust air defense posture, an essential leap in readiness and resolve. But what comes next? The stakes have shifted dramatically. The old model, routine air policing along Baltic and Polish borders, now seems insufficient. Last night drove home the reality: instead of a mere handful, Russia could unleash hundreds of drones, 500, 600, or even more. Could air policing alone survive such an onslaught? The answer is no. NATO must build an encompassing defense system. The plan begins with the first layer, sharpening situational awareness. This means more reconnaissance drones scanning every corner, increasing AWACS patrols almost to a relentless, 24/7 presence, and weaving new fixed radar points into the network's fabric. The second layer involves packing the skies with a thicker grid of short to medium-range firepower, more F-35s patrolling without pause, refueled mid-air by tankers strategically deployed closer to the front lines. Ground-to-air defenses must align with unified rules of engagement, forming a seamless shield. These moves are far from just technical upgrades. They speak a powerful language: deterrence. When that language rings loud and clear, provocations become less frequent. But here's the twist: the recent drone strike in Poland might well be the catalyst Europe needed. Could it finally shake the confidence of global leaders who hoped for peace, but doubted Vladimir Putin's sincerity? Might it convince those still on the fence that the time for cautious negotiations is over? Behind closed doors, the debate rages. Some hope this event reveals the true nature of the threat, pushing the United States to impose tougher sanctions and give Kyiv unwavering support. Yet the path forward remains fragile and complex. Will the world heed this wake-up call, or will old doubts and divisions pull the alliance into a perilous delay? The answers lie ahead, as Europe and its allies brace for what comes next. Will the vigilant watchmen of the sky prove enough to hold the line, or will the shadows bring another storm? On the fateful night of September 10, 2025, a chilling milestone was etched into the annals of NATO history. The sudden roar of F-16 and F-35 fighter jets pierced the stillness of the evening. Missiles were launched, Patriot radars blinked to life, and surveillance aircraft buzzed in the skies, all while the world held its breath. This wasn't a drill, it was a pivotal moment for Poland, marking its first real confrontation within the alliance against an aggressive Russia. On that tense night, 19 Russian drones flew toward Poland's borders, initiating an unprecedented attack. Radar systems picked up signs of unplanned military activity, signaling a cry for security across the nation. Amidst the mounting anxiety, citizens were advised to lock their doors and stay indoors as jets from Poland, the Netherlands, and Italy soared into the air, their engines roaring with purpose. As the Polish force readied their defenses, the air buzzed with urgency. Italian surveillance AWACS aircraft linked arms with Allied refueling units. Ground-based radar systems were thrust into action, monitoring the hostile targets that loomed closer. Dutch F-35s, invisible to enemy eyes, strategically positioned themselves, while the Polish F-16s prepared for engagement. In a calculated move intended to minimize risks to civilians, the command prioritized an air interdiction strategy over ground fire. It was a decision laden with peril. With a robust air defense architecture activated for the first time, the stakes soared. Amidst the chaos, Polish forces successfully shot down 4 of the invading drones, signaling a sign of resilience against an aerial onslaught unlike any before. Flight suspension notices echoed ominously across Warsaw, Mlin, Lublin, and Jehowa-Dziadzianka, as reports surfaced that the drones were part of a broader strike against Ukraine. The night had unfolded into a tense drama where outcomes could determine the balance of power in Europe. But this was only the beginning. With tensions high and the world observing, how would NATO respond to such an audacious act, and what might this mean for the intricate dance of geopolitics? A distinct line had been crossed, and the ripples from this event would reverberate far beyond the skies of Poland. The air conflict escalated dramatically late on September 10, 2025, as Poland reported downing 4 out of 19 unmanned aircraft that had breached its airspace. These drones were part of a larger attack targeting Ukraine. Flight operations in several cities, including Warsaw, Mlin, Lublin, and Jehowa-Jagiellonia, were suddenly halted, creating an atmosphere of tension. But what unfolded next would not only define the night but challenge NATO's very principles of defense. In a shocking twist, the Air Force disclosed that over 400 drones and 42 missiles were launched in this unprecedented assault. U.S. Representative Joe Wilson took to social media, labeling Russia's actions as an act of war. This attack came less than a week after a high-stakes meeting between President Donald Trump and Polish President Karol Nawrocki at the White House. Alarm bells rang as NATO jets were ordered to intercept the onslaught, while Heathrow Airport in Poland was closed off amidst growing anxiety. Emergency communications buzzed back and forth between Polish and NATO headquarters. Imagine the chaos, the sirens blaring, the tension palpable. Would this night result in a cataclysmic clash between NATO and Russia? The brief clips circulating showed palpable damage. In one frame, the roof of a Polish home lay torn apart, debris strewn about, an ominous sign of the crisis. Fortunately, there were no casualties, a small mercy in a situation of this magnitude. Yet, the absence of loss did not lessen the gravity of the moment. For the first time, Russia's offensive arsenal was met with a fierce response on NATO soil. The unexpected outcome of this operation marked a pivotal moment in the conflict, nudging it beyond the boundaries of previous confrontations. Under NATO's Article 5, an attack on one is seen as an attack on all. Could this incident foreshadow a bold new chapter in the alliance's history? Analysts speculated that the Kremlin aimed to probe NATO's resilience. Politicians braced for what could be the beginning of an entirely new level of confrontation. Would Poland's response trigger a domino effect within NATO's collective defense policies? The stakes had never been higher. What strategies would emerge from this grave confrontation? With the geopolitical landscape shifting underfoot, how would the West respond to this challenge? Prepare yourself, the unfolding drama might be just beginning.